Not the HVAC guys.
No, not the HVAC guys. Not this time. Okay, so let's see what we got to read. So yesterday we ended up with the words Shemishpacha Shenitma Nitma. That's really going to be a lot about what we're talking about today. We had a machlokes right at the end between Rab Chama bar Chanina, who said that when the Kadosh Baruch Hu purifies the nations, what he's going to do is he's going to identify who it is that is psula yichus and separate them out, thereby purifying the remaining people. Rabbi Shmuel Levi said, no, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to say once they're mixed into Klal Yisrael and they're not known, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be metired them. So in fact, the way it's going to work is Hashem is going to want certain psula yichus and certain mamzerim to be mixed into Klal Yisrael. So he's going to make them wealthy. And because of that, people are going to marry them, take them into their families, and they'll look away from the psula yichus. Eventually, it will be forgotten, and those mamzerim will be mixed into Klal Yisrael, and the Elionov will come along and be matar everybody. Okay, Gufa, Dr. Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Kol artzois, kol arotzois, all of the lands of the world are Isal Eretz Yisrael. Compared to Eretz Yisrael, they don't have such good yichus. So therefore, if someone from Eretz Yisrael wanted to be meshadach with somebody anywhere else, he would have to really question the yichus of the person that he wanted to be meshadach. But let Eretz Yisrael get too cocky. Eretz Yisrael Isal Bavel. If somebody, thank you so much. If somebody from Eretz Yisrael wanted to marry someone from Bavel, the people from Bavel are going to interrogate and analyze them to make sure that they're kosher yichus. Because Bavel is the purest of Yosy. And one of the things that was bothering me was that Ezra, when he left Eretz Yisrael with the delegation to Eretz Yisrael, so he took away all the mamzerim and all of the psulim so that the yichus and Bavel should be pure. And he figured, bring them all up to Eretz Yisrael, there we'll have a Rabbanim and the Poskim to deal with. But how long is that going to last already? Look, why did the mamzerim show up in the first place? So why wouldn't they show up again? That's what I was personally struggling with. So what I realized was, and it came out it'll come out more clearly in the next blot or so, is that once they were purified, there was a little bit of a protectionism. People were very careful who they were mishadach, because when you have something good, you hold on to it. It's like when you have a brand new car. The first person who scratches it is in trouble. But once it gets scratched already, or a brand new house, people start losing it. So we're going to see that, in fact, it lasted, that solidarity to stick together and not let psula yichus in, lasted from when Ezra left, which is before the second Beis HaMikdash, until the time of the Meroim. And in the time of the Meroim already, yes, it started, certain areas of Bavel already started succumbing, and their yichus wasn't perfect.
One of the things was Ezra Ketin, he purged Klaus, he took them off. Everybody said to go to Yeshua. So then,
so it's a chalton. So it's a chalton.
I believe there should be an established chalton.
But it's not the Goyish of Abed that made Mamzer. Not Goyish of made Mamzer.
I know.
We may, Rebbe, if you hold that Akam Shabal Bash Yisrael of Vlad Mamzer, there could be. But there were Mamzer. We may, Rebbe, Bikshu Lasois, Bavel, Isal Eretz Yisrael. In the days of Rebbe, what they wanted to do is Rashi says, Lahachzik Mishpachas Eretz Yisrael Miyuchasois. They wanted to consider Mishpachas and Mitzvah the lived like Ache Mishpachas Bavel Kalaboim Lisa Mishamisha. They wanted a theory that if somebody from Bavel wanted to marry somebody from Eretz Yisrael, they would have to go through an interrogation process to make sure that their yuchs were kosher. Rebbe, who originated from Bavel, had a huge problem with that. Amar lahen kutzim atem asimili beinai. You're putting thorns between my eyes. In other words, you're putting me and my mishpacha into a bad position. So therefore, I'm not even dealing with this want that you have. If you want to discuss it with a rabbi to see if you should fear that Yitapel imachan Reb Chanina bar Chama. So Nitpel imon Reb Chanina bar Chama, and Amalem, and he told them as following, unequivocally. Kach mikublani, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yosy, She'amar Mishim Aviv, Kol Artzois, Aratzois, Esau, LaEretz Yisrael, Esau LeBavel. Period. Full stop. We're not changing that.
But the dynamics can the Matthias can.
Sabatzachos gab das nicht. Meir Pichas, Big Shulas is Bavel, Esau LaEretz Yisrael. Again, Amar Lehem, Lavodav. He told Lavodav, he has to now task in something that might be controversial and he might get attacked for it. So here's the plan. He tells the servants, I'm going to go into the Beis Medrash and I'm going to first throw out a decoy, throw out a diversion. And then when everyone's thinking about my diversion, I'll say this controversial pshat and get me out of there. So that by the time they chap that I said a controversial pshat, I'll be safe. Because as soon as I say my two things in the Beis Medrash, Taluni ba'arisa, take me in a bed, virutzu, and run for your life. So Rashi shelo yafash v'shu achar devorav, and then if he says this, v'yitzarech legalosh mishpachos v'yizaken v'yilach al. He couldn't run by himself, so he needed people to carry him out quickly. So Ki'ayel, first he said something puzzling. Amalem ein shchita lo oif min ha-Torah. There's no chiyuv to shech an oif midaraisa. That's interesting. I wonder why. The whole crowd erupted into a tumult to try to figure out what the answer was. Rashi says in Chulin, the Gemara teaches us that we learn it out of a pasuk, and then at the Yosy Kama Aniba, once everybody was distracted thinking about Shchita life in the Torah, Amalu he quickly said, Kol Artois Isa Eretz Yisrael, the Eretz Yisrael Isa Bavel, which means in Eretz Yisrael there are people that are Psula Yufsin. So now they're going to want to, oh yeah, who? We're very curious to know. Who are you aware of here in Eretz Yisrael that are Mamzerim? I have some suggestions, but maybe you know who the Mamzerim are. Notlu by Risav Aratu. And Ratu Acharov, and they all came running after him. They wanted to know who he was referring to. V'lohi Giyu, Baruch Hashem, he had good servants, they knew how to run fast. Yoshvu Ubatku. So people started looking into this. Is it true that Eretz Yisrael is Israel? Let's start looking into it. So they started scrutinizing different families to see if they could figure out who is the mamzer amongst the Bnei Eretz Yisrael that Rav Pinchas was referring to. And what happened was they started getting too close to the target. They were hovering over the target. So they had to send in, as the corrupt liberal government had to send in the CIA and the FBI, the DOJ, to arrest everybody involved that were getting too close to the target. They were at a point of sakana. Rashi, livsel mishpachis anshe Yisroya. There were some powerful families that were coming under suspicion. They would kill them for that. So therefore, Pirshu, they had to back off. So they had to leave it. Zok the Gemara. Hichla. Hichla, Zok Rashi, is a loshen shvua beheichol shalmak. And there are those who bring a raya from here that it must be that kedusha rishoy nekitcha l'shayta ulas and lovay. Because if not, Hechla has no kedusha. So Hechla, biyadenihi, really biyadenihi legalois psul mishbachis Eretz Yisrael. Really, we're able to publicize all those people in Eretz Yisrael who are psul yufsim. Could you imagine what a tumult that would make? Avomaya, so what should I do? Shall we gedai lehadar nitmuba? There's some great gedai lehadar that are already mixed in with mamzer. Sovereign law, it must be that Rabbi Yochanan held, like Rabbi Yitzchak, mishpacha shenitma nitma. Once they're mixed in, you leave it the way it is. You leave it the way it is, and you don't say anything. Amar Abaye, afani nami tanina, mishpachas beisat shrifa. There was a family by the name of Beisat Shrifa, and they were falsely accused by a powerful family that they're mamzerim. V'Rivka ben Sion Bizroya. Ben Sion was a powerful family, and they decided that they're not kosher yichus, and they pushed them out. Notice the Oida Cheres, the Gemara does not mention their name. V'Kirva ben Sion Bizroya. and they were Taka Mamzerim, and this tough family were Makar of them. You see the injustice. But you also see the Akbada, not to say Lashon Hara. The innocent family that was falsely painted with a brush of Mamzeris, they were based at Shrifa. They were identified. But the guilty family, that they were never identified. And Kagoy Nelu, such people who end up getting mixed in to Klal Yisrael, Elio ba Latame Ulatar Larachik Ulakar. Kagoy Nelu Diyat, that's only if it's still known about them that they're Mamzerim. But once they're mixed in and most people don't know about it anymore, nitma, it's done. Let's see Rashi. The whole mishpacha shenitma nitma. The ein la frisha ularchika ulavar safek mitmameim. The safek of their mixture. Mi nitma miloy nitma. Who's mixed in? Amams or not? Eliyanichem. Let's leave it. Veim safek. Veim ksherim lost love. They'll be kosher. Based on Shiva Hashem and Shpacha. Ben Sin Adam Choshav Yisrael. He was a powerful man. Richa Hichvi Shem Psulam. He announced their Psulam. Eliyoba, Lasad Lavi, Dechsiv, Vehishiv, Leivavo, Salbonim, Zem ibn Banov, Shalzem. He's going to say who's child. The Yoidin Shakol Machsikinai Sob Psulim, Shenskavu Bezroya, those are those who Eliyahu identifies Psulim, of a Mushpach Shenitma, Machmo Shaloi Noida Psula Nitma, and they're going to remain in Klal Yisrael. Tana Oya Cheres Hoisa. There was another family that was also Mamzer, that was not spoken about. But the Chachamim didn't want to publicize it. But they still kept a record of it. They can tell quietly their children, their Talmidim, so that it should be known that they're Mamzer, but you don't publicize it. You leave it the way it is. How often did they say it over? Once every 7 years, very rarely. Because that's what's considered rare. How do you know? If someone said a rainy Nazir, I should be a Nazir im egla or im legala mishbachis. I know about certain mamzerim, and if I don't say over who they are, I'm a kabbalah upon myself in Naziris. The Allah is yehi Nazir. Better he should be a Nazir v'lo yegala mishbachis. And the Ramasho speaks out that there was actually a family that didn't want to speak Lashon Hara. And because of that, they wanted to remove themselves from society because of the demands and the difficulty in avoiding saying Lashon Hara, especially about Yichos. So they all made themselves Nazirim, which forced themselves to separate from Klal Yisrael. And this is what it's referring to. Better you should join that group rather than have to out people who are Mamzerim. Oh, I'm happy you're asking that question because Rabbi Moshe Paskin the Shaila. What do? You have to tell somebody that the person they're looking into is a mamzer. Oh, it's a very beautiful question. It's a very beautiful question. So before I answer that question, we have to learn over here a phenomenal marsha.
1 second. This family is that family that Richter seen. That's what Rashi said.
No, Rashi says in addition to that. Rashi says. It's additional fact. Okay, let's look at a very important marsha. Very important marsha. And then we'll talk about the psak of Rabbi Moshe when it comes to these things. If you follow Rashi, the best thing is if the guy's a mamzer, you say he's a mamzer, but he's wealthy. That'll cover you. Okay, we are on Daf Ayin Aleph Amud Aleph. So let's have a look at the Marsha. Ayin Aleph Amud Aleph is the next page. It's the page of next on. So let's see what we have over here in the map department over here. Here it is.
It's in Agudus or
it's in Agudus. It's in the small ones. Here we go. V'shamar b'yadeinu. Pierce. Okay, we're gonna skip to the bottom, and here it says the chemuchach la'il the matar mamzerim la'asid. אבל השתו בסופק הם עומדים, ומי שידע בסוויקם, ודאי תירחק בהם, משום דאין השכינה שורה, אלא על המיוחסה שבישראל. אלא כיוון שנטמע, ועalso יהיו קשרים לגמרי, once they're mixed in, Eliyahu will be machshir them totally. Ein legalois lacher besveikas vein lafrishon. So if you know they're mamzerim, you shouldn't be mishadach with them. But you should absolutely not tell anybody about it if it's something that the oil doesn't know about. Kapirish Rashi. Uvidar hazeh zakte marsha in the Heinti Gadar, going back a couple of 100 years ago when the marsha was living. Ruban sveikas. Most people are sveikas, and therefore ba'magala lechaveiroi. Because of the concept that we learned yesterday, if you're going to say somebody else a mamzer, you know why? Because you're probably a mamzer, and you're just trying to make yourself feel better by passing yenim. It's a horrible thing. You have to scream at people who reveal psula yichas and other families, and scream at them to their faces. Give it to them to their face. So Yeshuvu midracham alolu, and here's the best part. You know who the worst violators? The shatchanim are the worst. I don't know why. They would be the ones who tried to cover it up, unless they tried to mess up somebody else's shidduch. I don't know. They're mu'adim. They're hassling people's zichus. You should punish them for it. You know, the kalahavin. It's a passion. So the Marsha is saying that nowadays where nobody's so sure, nobody can be so perfectly sure about where they're from and what their yichus is, so keep your mouth shut, even if you're a shadchan. I never saw the Marsha come out specifically against a group of people and attack them. Okay, I think there's a TSI initiative meeting this week. Maybe we should introduce them to this Marsha. Okay, gewaltig. Zog to Gemara weiter. The Marsha is another rant that we're going to learn about in a little bit. So this is a good day for the Marsha's rant. Oh, but Moshe Paskin's halacha is exactly this: that if Moshe is a huge chiddush, he says it over from Aram. He builds from Aram a massive chiddush, and he learns that the iser to marry a mamzer is just that. It's to marry a mamzer or a mamzeris, knowing that lo yover lo bakal means you're not going to marry them. It's the iser chitun, knowing that they're mamzer. If you marry a mamzer and you didn't know about it, you were not even over the iser. And living with them and continuing to live with them once you're married, provided that you didn't marry the mamzer but iser, is 100% mutter. There's not even an iser on. Zokter Moshe, if someone's asking you about somebody and you know they're a mamzer for sure, avad you're supposed to tell them because you're supposed to be mafreshim from doing the iser. But if someone's already married and they're married to a mamzer, they were not over an avera, and there's no chiv whatsoever for them to be parish. It's also to tell them. That's what Moshe Paskin. Yeah. Oh, I don't know if the children are fine. No, the children are there. The children are still mamzer.
So the shal is.
Huh?
So the shal is, but when the kids,
but he was over an issue.
But the kids.
So maybe if somebody asks you about the kids before they get married, you also have to tell them that it's a mamzer. But if someone marries, that's the chiddush that Moshe brings right from the run. I forgot to run, but he brings a raya that the isser to marry a mamzer is to marry the mamzer, knowing that it's a mamzer. If you didn't know it's not an isser, and once you're married, there's no more isser to stay married.
It's a lot, right?
Okay, gewalt. Look to Gemara weiter. Tanu Rabban. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not there yet. I'm by the nose here. Omer Rabba bar Rav Chana Rabbi Yochanan. Shem, the Shem of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ben Arba Oisiyos. So Jud Kevovke, which we pronounce with Adnos, Chachamim Moitzun Oishay L'Talmideim, Pamachas B'Shavua. The reasoning, the understanding, the name, the parish of these names of Hashem are only given over once in 7 years. But there's no vav in the word la'olam, so la'olam ksiv, ilam is meloshin, hidden, anonymous. Right? Sometimes you see a donation from Misha Raitcha, but ilam shemoy. He wants his name to remain anonymous. Ksiv. Rava Savar, lemidush b'pirka. Rava once wanted a darshan about the Shem Hashem in his drosha. Amalei Husaba, la'olam ksiv, you're not allowed. Rabbi Vina Rami, he asked the kasha. Ksiv zeshmi, it says, this is my name. Ksiv zezikri. And Rashi pointed, it doesn't say zeshmi v'zichri. It says a two separate things. It says shmi It says Zichri. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu Lo Kishani Nichtav Ani Nikra. I'm not read the way I am written. It's written Yud Kei Vav Kei, right? Nichtav Ani Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Nikra Ba'alav Dalet. So it's a different pronunciation compared to the way the word's written. It doesn't say you're not allowed to use it. It says you're not allowed to explain it. You're not allowed to be mefarish it. It's about the parish boy. Tanur Rabban, Bereshona, Shem ben Shtem Esrei Yosy. So this is already 12 Yosys. How you might Yosy, L'chol Adam, anybody who wanted, they would give it to him over. And again, it's with the parish. Mishrabar Pritzim, once they were people who were inappropriate, that were using it in an inappropriate fashion, as Rashi says. How you might only l'tznuin shebekahuna. And what for? Levarech b'ya omer, Rashi says, b'mikdash, la'achav b'yis tzibur shal tamid shal shach. That's the only reason they were able to use it. But tznuin shebekahuna, they didn't want people to hear it. So mavali and Yosy b'neimas achem hakayan. When their other brothers were saying Shem Hashem and being menagin, they quickly said it quietly so people shouldn't hear it, but they actually said it. I once went with my uncle to Duchen. So he was the son of a Kohen, but the brother of his mother also was from a family of Kahuna. I leaned in near the Kohen Gadol to hear what he was saying. I saw he was doing just that. Shem ben Arboim Mushtayim Oisios Ein Moishun Oisoi El Mishitsanua the Onov the Oimid Bechatzi Yomov. He has to be already at El to the Yid. The Einay Koyes, he has to be somebody who never gets angry. The Einay Mishtaker, somebody who never gets drunk. Shmuel, so far you still qualify. The Einay Mahamad Al Midaisov, and it's not Mahamad Al Midaisov. The Chol HaYoidoi, and anyone who knows it. The Hizr boy, the Hazar boy, and is careful with it to use only properly. And watch it b'tahira, such a person over the ma'ila v'nechlav v'nechmad lamata. The emosay will tell us obvious, and naturally people will respect him. And v'noichol shnei olamim ha'olam hazeh v'ha'olam haba. Gevalti. Zok to Marsha over here. Another rant from the Marsha.
She couldn't drop.
Is it over there? So look what the Marsha says over here about this. About the Shem. So I'm going to also skip to the middle of the Marsha. Here we have to protest those people who like to dash in Barabim, who in our generation, beside Hashem, they're dashing about the Shem Hashem, the Kamet Tzirufim, and they're explaining it with Tzirufim. I can't explain what that is because I never learned that, nor did I hear Drush about it. The Yoser Mehema. And it's even worse. Im heim devarim nimsarim lahem im devarim she'enam nimsarim lahem pichachim. Some darshan from Zanegen Poich ramped up pshatim in the Shem Hashem that he's darshaning, and he didn't hear it be pikabala from his rabbis. Oy she'atalmud ein hagen lahaven advarim al ikra nushroshan. Or maybe even if he heard the information properly, maybe someone in the audience shouldn't be listening to what he's saying. They're nonsense made up from his heart. Whoever could be moich against these people, the gamani, so myself as well, if I had the power to do so, I would stop. So the Marsha was in a tough mood that day. He was putting down the law. Now, we're also going to soon see that Rashi never visited the Middle East. That's what we're going to get to later. Hopefully, we'll get to it. I came too late. I did this already. We're up to the bottom over here. Amar Shmuel, Mishmei Saba, Bavel becheskes ksheremedes. Anyone in Bavel, you can assume is a kosher, unless you know for a fact that there was a psul over here. So you have to scrutinize a shidduch to make sure that you can independently verify that it's kosher. You can't assume anything. But Eretz Yisrael, muslik l'apostle. If there's a family that's muslik l'apostle, muslik l'kosher. Frankly, that's a stira. Haguva kosher. Amrit muslik l'apostle, hastama is kosher. V'hadatani dafka musuk l'kasher is kosher. Tam is possible. Amarfuna b'tachlifa b'shmei rav loy kasher. It's not a steer at all. Kan turning on Tamid base. Kan loy lasia isha. We assume they're possible, and you better check very carefully. Kan lahaitzi isha miyado. Once he's married, unless you can prove that there's a psul, you would not do that. Amar Yosef, kol sheseichasoi kibavel. If someone speaks with the same language as Bavel, the same dialect, he sounds like a Baveli. Here in Toronto, someone could sound like a New Yorker, or he could say walk or bull, or he could say ball or walk, right? If he's a Canadian. So if someone speaks in the lingo of Bavel, you can assume that he is from Bavel, and you can assume he has pure Yuchsin. Masiin lo isha, you could marry your daughter to him because you assume he's a kosher. But nowadays, Dikaramai, where there are people who know how to mimic, and they could copy the dialect of Bavel, so then it could be anybody, therefore Chashinon, and you cannot trust somebody just because he sounds like he's from Bavel. Ziri was trying to stay away from Rabbi Yochanan. Why? To have an Omer Lein Nesiv Barti, because Rabbi Yochanan wanted Ziri to marry his daughter. Rabbi Yochanan wanted Ziri as an Edom. Yom Echad wanted to have a Kozli Barucha. I was walking with my Rebbe Rabbi Yochanan. Ziri was a Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan. We reached a little stream of water, so I carried Rabbi Yochanan on my shoulders as my Rebbe. I'm a Shamash Rebbe. I was taking them over the river. Amalei told me, I don't understand. Our Torah is kosher, Bantin like kosher, but our daughters aren't kosher for you. Why don't you want to marry my daughter? You live in me the town. And therefore, what you're saying is, in Bavel, you're pure, maybe you was from Eretz Yisrael, and it's not pure. Kahana Levi, we're some of them. Are you telling me, Auto Kahana Levi, Israeli, Kulus Liku, when you're saying no Kahanim remained in Bavel? Of course some did. So maybe some Mamzerim, some Shtuki, some Chalufis, some Sufis, some Mamzerim, maybe all the rest of the list also weren't completely removed from Bavel. But Rabbi Yochanan forgot an important thing. So talking about Shidduchim, the very famous story, Rabbi Dov Schwartzman, Zatzal, was an Edom by Rabbi Aaron, but he ended up divorcing his wife. Well, how did it come that he should get married? Rabbi Aaron was in America, and he heard that Rabbi Dov Schwartzman was a Bacher in Israel, top guy, and he heard that he had to come to America. Mr. Arnold said the story over. He was in Lakewood at the time. And what happened is Rabbi Aaron sent a message to Rabbi Dov's Rosh Hashiva to write a letter and to give it to Rabbi Dov and tell Rabbi Dov, deliver this to Rabbi Aaron so that Rabbi Aaron would have an opportunity to meet Rabbi Dov face to face. And sure enough, that's what happened. He was in America. He went to visit Rabbi Aaron. And Rabbi Aaron was talking to him. Rabbi Aaron was truly impressed with him. So Rabbi Aaron says, so Rabbi Dov said, and he turns around and he walks out and he gets into the car. He was going to Brooklyn. And he gets into a horrific car accident on the way to Brooklyn. And he was in the hospital for a couple of months. While he was in the hospital, every day, listen to this, today they wouldn't have it. Every day Rabbi Aaron sent his daughter to bring him lunch at the hospital and to visit him. Could you imagine? Could you imagine? And after a month, so Rabbi Dov had huge hakaras hatov. Rabbi Aaron's daughter literally nursed him back to health. So he went back to Rabbi Aaron and he told Rabbi Aaron, thank you very much. And it's now I'm healthy again, I can go. And Rabbi says, Efsher wirst du treffen mit mein Tochter. So Rabbi said, Efsher nicht. And he turned around, he walked out, and as he was going down the stairs, he sprained his ankle. And he stopped and he went back to Rabbi Efsher yo. So this is called the Ritzon Yirei of Yasa, Veshavosa Mishma v'Yoshie. The chasna went through, but it didn't last so long. What? That's right. So that's the story. Zok to Gemara.
How long did it last?
I don't know how long it lasted, but listen, they have two Rosh Hashivas, our children from that marriage, right? The Schwartzmans. Ula Ikloid is one, not the Schwartzmans. Yeah, of course. And there's Edom, Rabbi Yochanan is Edom there, and Shlomo is Edom there. Schwartzman. Ula Ikla Lepomdisa. Ula once visited Pomdisa. There's another story when they were building the Bishakov Elementary School. Moshe Reichman, who wanted to solicit a big donation from Joe Bavel. You know that story. So Moshe invited, or Moshe, I think Moshe invited him to a breakfast. They would schmooze over breakfast, and then during that meeting, he was going to ask for money. What happened was Joel brought with him a bottle of wine, and he puts it on the table. He says, Moshe, let's have some wine. So Moshe says, I don't know if it's the wine. Skusher is a lot of eating the wine. So he says, Mavan in the Skusher, and my geld auch in the Skusher.
Nou, als je niet zo op de wel, dan wijst voor zich geen tijd. Because the penguins in the class.
Ula set up Pumbedisa, Levei Rabbi Yehuda, to the house of Rabbi Yehuda, and he saw Rabbi Yehuda had knelt to the Bucher. Told you, Rabbi Yitzchak Barei, Rabbi Yehuda, the Gadol, Nosef. He saw that Rabbi Yitzchak had an older son, Rabbi Yehuda had an older son, Rabbi Yitzchak, who was never married. Amalei, he told Rabbi Yehuda, my time of life come in, it's a Barei. Why didn't you find a shidduch for your son? Amalei, how am I going to find somebody? I don't know who to marry him off to, who has good yichus. Amalei, Atu Anan. You think you're so perfect? You think we know that we're perfect? We're also svekis. Maybe maybe we're einiglich of these women. In other words, a Jewish woman were violated like the behemoths and the chayes from the Rishoyim of the Havamas. Maybe that's what happened. And maybe we're children from there. So maybe we're Mamzerim. Maybe we're ourselves Mamzerim. So you're so picky with your Yitzchakol. So even if we are descendants from such a pregnancy, we're still kosher. It says, they're sleeping on beautiful beds made out of ivory, but their beds were dirty. What does that mean? These are perutzim. They would go to the bathroom in front of their beds undressed, not in the tznius to go in. And Yosy said this pshat. Rabbi Bavel was upset at him. Rabbi Bavel, how could you say that's pshat? You know what the pasuk concludes after it talks about these people? It says, okay, it's not a nice thing that they're preachers thing. That's the reason to go into Golos. It's not such a good thing, but because of that, to go into Golos, you cannot say that. So that cannot be what the pasuk is referring to. I'll tell you what the pasuk is referring to. Couples who party together, and the two couples put their beds together, and then and because of that, there's zera all over their beds that aren't even theirs. It's a mamiyas azach, but that's already going to create mamzer. So what he told Rabbi Yehuda was what Ula told Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe you're an ethical from these people. Maybe you're from these people, and you're a mamzer yourself. So I'm now. What should I do? If you want to find somebody and have the biggest chance that they're pure, find people who are quiet, who don't fight back, who don't scream back, who avoid machlokes. Ki hai, the bot ki b'nei ma'arava, and the b'nei ma'arava would be boidik somebody, ki minzu bei trei, b'hade adodi, when there were two people fighting, they would look, hai minayu the kadam b'shosik, who would like walk away from the argument first and not need to get the last word. Omri, that person, hai miyuchas tvei, he's probably more miyuchas. Amarav, shtikuse the Bavel, hani yutfus. In Bavel, the person who was the quieter one, who didn't have to answer back, he was considered a miyuchas. Isn't there a story where Rav came and was boidik in the Bavelium? My love be yichusa. He was probably boidik to yichus. So you see, shtikus the Bavel isn't the right. So that's exactly what he was boidik for. He wanted to find out who are the quiet people who don't answer back, who don't have to get the last word. Ishaski, Eli Shaski. If you see two people, they seem not to get along, and we can't understand. They should be able to get along. There's something about these two people, somehow they just don't get along. It must be Shemetz Psul Yesh B'Echad. One of them probably is a Psula Yichus, and the Rebbeinu Shalom is trying to protect the other family from the Psula Yichus, so he's keeping them apart. There's two families that seem not to be able to get along. Again, Shemetz Psul Yesh B'Achas Mehen, and Min HaShamayim, they're purifying the other family. Bavel Beria. Bavel is healthy, meaning it's Yuchsin on the scale, it's in the green. It's in the green, we can assume everybody's kosher. Misha and Misa. Mishan is dead. In Mishan, everybody's hustle. Modai Chayla, meaning there's a lot of psulim, but not enough to take it down. Ilam Gaiseses, that's a really bad sickness. It's probably going to go down. Umabin Chulun Gaisin. What's the difference between Chayla and Gaisin? Not between Modai and Ilam. Roiv Chayla Nachayim, but Roiv Gaisin Lamisa. Now we're talking about geography. Bavel. Where are the municipal boundaries of Bavel? So that we know where you can assume if someone lives, their yuchsin is pure. So up to Gemara, Ateicheni Bavel. So let's just in our minds draw a picture because I don't have an art scroll with me. And the picture that we're going to draw is you have two rivers, the Euphrates and the Pras, which is the Chidekel and Nahar Pras. I forgot what Nahar Pras is called in English. Yeah, if I could. I meant to take a picture. I can take a picture of my phone and give you back the Gemara. What's the English name for Nahar Pras?
Euphrates.
Tigris.
Oh, so
Tigris.
isn't Harpros Euphrates?
Tigris, yeah.
Tigris. Okay, I got it. Sure. So here we have. So just looking at the map of Bavel, we have the Tigris River, which feeds into the Euphrates. So the Nahar Pras is the one on the upper right, which I will say the East River, and the West River is the Chidekel, and the Tigris feeds into the Chidekel and it goes down. It flows, of course, from northwest to southeast. Rashi did not know the landscape. And we're not going to learn Rashi's pshat because Rashi says beferish. If you look at Rashi's pshat on this geography, what he says here, lefia inyan near it. It's a funny introduction to Rashi's pshat, and he completely misdescribes it. He learns that the rivers are flowing from south to north, and he learns that they're separated on the south and they join in the north. It's exactly the opposite.
I have a few rayas from Rashi and Chumash. They never saw a map of Eretz Yisrael or the Middle East.
So it stems because from this pshat of Rashi, it's obvious that he didn't know what it looked like.
And he says, Omar Ani. Okay, I say, as opposed to, what do you mean? It's not an opinion. Right.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we have over here. So let's have a look. Let's have a look at the Gemara. So just to see how it looks, they both travel from northwest to southeast. They join at the end. So the question will be, how far to the east of the Tigris River and how far to the west of the Euphrates River does Bavel extend? How far to the north and how far to the south? That is going to be the question that we're dealing with. So Zokta Heilige Gemara.
Those boundaries kept changing. There's not a one-time boundary.
The municipal boundaries changed. We're discussing the boundaries of the Gabi Yuchsin.
Okay,
Not necessarily always meet the municipal borders. So Bavel. I'm sorry?
The north part is Asher, because you have Nineveh up there.
So it could have changed.
Today's Mosul.
Yes, it could have changed ownership and it could have changed rulers, but the halacha of Soilas that their yuchsin were intact, these are the borders that apply to them. The Mefarshim speak up in Farish, even though it might not have been called Bavel or Bavel, boundaries could have been bigger. These are the boundaries relevant dafka to this halacha, and we'll even see there's halachas that it's not negated. So this is what happened. Rav Amar ad Nar Ozok, and Nar Ozok is to the east of the Tigris River. There was a river that was called Ozok. Shmuel Amar ad Nar Yohan. Again, that's to the east. La'il Bediglis ad Hecha, in the north side. In the north, how far is it? Rav Amar ad Bagda the Avna. There was a place where Bagda was on one side of the river. Avna was on the other side of the river. That's the north border for this halacha. Shmuel Amar ad Mushchani. It goes up until Mushchani, which is a little bit further north, but Veloy Mushchani Bechlal. The city of Mushchani itself was not part of Bavel. There the Yuchsin was no good. It does have the din of Bavel if it's pure. Well, after Shmuel extended to Mushchani, and Mushchani is also part of Bavel. What about on the southeast side? There were two Afamia cities. There's the upper one and the lower one. So up until the lower one. Karti Atami Havan, Chada Elisa, one was upstream, Chad Sai was downstream. Chad Ksheira, the upstream one was kosher, Chad Psula, the downstream was possible. When Chad Chad Parsa, there was only one parsa, which was about 2.5 miles in between these two cities. But they were so makbid on each other because one was kosher or yuchsin, and one was possible yuchsin. They were so careful not to mingle. They could cut the adodi, vafil nura loy muslim adodi. They wouldn't even borrow a match, a flame from the other one. There was no connection between the two of them. The simonech, the psulta, ha, the mishtoi mishnis. Who was puzzle? Which of these two cities were puzzle? The one that spoke the language of mishnis. Mishnis, Meshon, we said earlier, Meshon Mitzah. In Mishon, everybody's mamzer. So those that spoke the language of mishnis, they were closer to Mishon, those are the ones that are puzzle. How about on the northwest side of the Nahar Pras? How far did it go? Rav Omer at Akra de Tulbanki, Shmuel Omer at Gishra de Pras, which is further north. So Shmuel extends this zone even further north. Rabbi Yochanan Omer at Marba de Gizma, which was further south. Light Abaye. Abaye would curse Vitem Rabbi Yosef at the Rav because Rav extended the border north to past Marba de Gizma. Right to Gemara, the Rav light and the Shmuel light. Shmuel pushes it even further north. El light at the Rav, the Kolshkein at the Shmuel. He was upset that Rav extended the zone of kashrus. For sure, he would be upset at Shmuel, who extended it even further. Now, this is where it's very important. This is where the Marsha says, Abai is cursing Shmuel, Abai is cursing Rav, Avadana. At the times of Rav and Shmuel, in fact, you could be assured that anybody in these cities will be pure. But times changed. It was starting to bleed. And the level of Yuchsin was starting to drop. So Abai in his days cursed anybody that still followed Shmuel's ruling and was mashing these people, because by Abai's days already, those cities were falling. But we have to flip it around. The Gisha de Pras to Tasoyav. Originally, the Gisha de Pras was south of Akra de Tulbanki. And but nowadays, the Persians moved it north. Okay, we're already way over, so we have to stop here, and we'll be mamshech tomorrow. But Rashi learns completely the opposite, that everything's flowing north, and it seems that Rashi, and as David said as well, there's many Rashi from Rashi that Rashi did not know the geography of the Middle East. Okay, we'll stop here. That's what we'll go on tomorrow. Today, by the way, is the yahrzeit of the Rebbe of the Chavetz Chaim, Rav Nachum Harod. He was a very holy man. And the famous story with him is when the Chavetz Chaim was 15 years old, he snuck in. Rav Nachum took the job as a shamus in the Beis Medrash, and the Chavetz Chaim decided to go there for Ma'ariv one night to see as the Rebbe. And after Ma'ariv, he hid out in Desert Noshim. Nobody knew he was there, to see what Rav Nachum does after Ma'ariv. After Ma'ariv, he went to the Bima, and they had a box of shamus in the Bima, and he took out a sefer, a Kabbalah sefer, and he started learning, and he was engulfed in a flame. And the Chavetz Chaim almost gasped, like the fire. He was almost about to scream fire, but then he chapped. It was a ruchnistic of fire, and his Rebbe learned for about an hour. He put the sefer away, the fire went away. So when Nachum heard that Chavetz Chaim saw the fire, he said, "Wow, I didn't realize that you're such a high madrega at 15 that you would even see the fire." But that's when he became the Chavetz Chaim's Rebbe Muvak. The Chavetz Chaim kept a picture in his house of Rav Nachum, and he showed his children, "This is my Rebbe."
I remember Astro book, Rav Nachum. Grabne and Harabne, the same